the service. So it was kind of an intense weekend for my family. My dad was supposed to be here to do tonight's service, but my sister-in-law was taken into the hospital to have an emergency C-section. This morning, my nephew was born, and we're going to refer to him as the dude, because my sister-in-law made the mistake of not telling us what the name was. So we had been teasing her all along that we wanted to name we wanted to name him the dude, because we're all big fans of the movie The Big Lebowski. It literally is one of my favorite movies. I know that tells a lot about me, and that's probably helps you figure out why you think the way you do of me, because I really like that movie. So now she has to name our baby, our new family member, the dude, because it's on YouTube. So from now on, we'll refer to him as the dude. But I wanted to thank everyone for their prayers and their thoughts. I know this morning it was mentioned, both baby and my sister-in-law are doing wonderfully. The baby was a month premature. Thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. So that's why my dad's not here, is because he's at the hospital. He was with them off and on all day. And so he asked me to speak tonight at about 12:30 this afternoon. Unfortunately, that means you're all in for it, because it was on the fly, because on top of it being an intense weekend for my sister and my brother, and for everyone really in the family, it was Pride today. So the Pride Parade, and I was asked to walk in it for the first time ever. And it was quite an incredible process for me to get there, because I was like really nervous at first when I was asked. I was like, well, what do I wear? And then what do I say? And then what do I do? And then, of course, when you get there to something, when you're really worked up and nervous and crazy, because I kind of was, but I'm a social worker, so I'm used to being crazy on the inside while I do my hair on the outside, right? So I got there and my legs were paddling like crazy in my head, but I looked okay on the outside, I think. Now I'm saying that, I never asked anybody, because I don't want their opinion. I don't want to find out I wasn't that smooth. But it was quite an incredible process to be a part of that. And it's hard to kind of put it into words just yet, but I feel like as far as this world is coming, we obviously have a long way to go to get to wherever it is we're headed. But it seems like some things are changing, because here I am in the middle of this parade, and we're walking down 9th Ave, going west on 9th Ave, which is complete opposite direction to 9th Ave. And I can't see through the crowd. Like, I can't see everybody that can see us, right? Because there's too many people, and they're cheering, and they're yelling, and they're screaming, and they're going bananas, and it's amazing. Like, the energy was just basically going into me, and I'm sure everyone else who was walking in the parade felt the same way. That energy is very contagious. And I didn't expect this, because I thought, every time I think of parades, I think of like police barricades all along the parade route so no one can get through. Well, I had people running up and hugging me from the side that I didn't even see them coming. So of course, initially I went like judo block, and then was going to throw them down. But it was quite incredible when people see that this is a part of not only me, part of my life, but also a part of this church, right? A part of this church is welcoming everyone. And we say that every Sunday night. Every Sunday night without fail. We try to incorporate everyone being welcome here. And that means everyone. There are no exceptions to that, right? And I'm sure if we look around the room and we took a poll, we could look around the room and we could probably find one of everything, right? Or maybe a combination even of one of everything. Just because we may live differently doesn't mean it's better or worse, right? And so to me, it was more than just something I did for me, right? And I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for a friend who goes to this church, That was the only reason I really said yes, because I wanted to, impress her a little bit. I wanted to, do something impressive. So obviously it worked. But it was so much fun, and it was so interesting to kind of be a part of that, because one of the people that ran out of the crowd to hug me was someone that I actually owed an amends to at one point, right? And so step 9, which is the step we're on, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And I thought of this, and thank God that she did run out of the crowd and give me a hug, because I might have been sitting up here looking at you blankly the whole time I was supposed to talk. But she kind of spurred on some thinking about the step, right? So what does the big book says lots of stuff about a lot of things, but I'm not really interested in that tonight. What I'm interested in is the first paragraph of the 12 and 12 on step 9, because I think it's very telling. It's so telling, in fact, that people have done studies on that one paragraph. What does that paragraph mean? Right? The paragraph is good judgment, a careful sense of timing, courage, and prudence. These are the qualities we shall need when we take step 9. That is very telling. It's very descriptive. I could end it right there. That's what you need. There's step 9. Now we need to move on to October, because that is what we're looking to do. But then when I work with other people, they say, well, what is good judgment? What does that look like? Because obviously it can be different depending on who you are and where you come from, right? Well, good judgment is clear thinking, common sense, discernment, weighing one's options with accuracy. And it also includes the other words that are in that first paragraph. Basically, what they were trying to tell us in that first paragraph is, go slow. Ask for help, right? Don't rush. You don't have to rush to get it all done. And in fact, what they're telling us, if I'm paying attention just to the words itself, they're telling me, whatever you do, be careful. Because now we're getting out of ourself again. Okay? We're now going back into the world that we once tried to burn down. Now, we didn't try to burn it down on purpose. At least I don't think I did. Maybe I did. But most of us didn't try to burn it down on purpose. But we still had the same effect, right? And some of those fires are still smoldering. And oftentimes what happens when new people come in is they want to go and put out the fires right away. Well, this is going to help. This is going to help. But then at that point, we're losing the good judgment and the careful sense of timing. I can only imagine what my friends would have said had I sobered up at AA the first time I went to AA and then I ran to all my friends and said, you know what? Okay, I'm just going to line you guys up. I'm going to say sorry to all of you for the things I've done, and I swear to you I'll never do them again. The chances are that would not have worked well. Even when I waited a certain amount of time, I had friends tell me to go pound sand, right? They said, not interested, you always said sorry the day after. And I don't know if that's the same for other people or not, but it certainly was the way it was for me, which helped me develop that careful sense of timing. What it means is when time has been taken to not only stop the behavior, but also to consider the actual time and place for those other people involved. Am I considering the fact that what did I do to that person? What was the gravity of that event which I owe an amends for? Was it something that's going to be quickly forgotten? Or is it something that I might want to be careful about? Obviously, that's in that word, or that phrase, careful sense of timing. I want to be careful. Be careful, right? And I remember when I sobered up, even though it was a few years ago, I wanted to run around and say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because there was a part of my brain that wouldn't even let me see how many times I had said sorry before. What my brain was telling me was that everything I thought was genuine. Everything I thought was exactly as it was supposed to be. And therein lies a part of the trouble when I stick to myself. Because oftentimes, I have to admit that my idea about these matters is not necessarily the truth. My memory of them isn't the truth. My idea of how to handle them isn't the truth. But what can happen if I go slow and I walk with someone else, hence why we get sponsors and we have friends in the program, and trust me when I say this, no matter how evolved a person thinks they are, please, we all need sponsors. I remember a guy telling me, and he was a picture of imperfect health, telling me that he was too evolved for a sponsor. He said, I don't need a sponsor, I'm far too smart. I have it figured out. But for some reason, he couldn't figure out how to stay sober. He had everything else figured out. Probably knew the big book way better than I do, which is not saying much, by the way. But knew the Bible better than I do, which is definitely not saying much, right? Knew all these things much better than I do. But there was that one difference. I haven't drank. That was the one difference. And I don't know if it's because I'm dumb enough, maybe, right, to just not pick up. But what I had to do is I had to get in the middle of all those people that they talk about. I had to walk with people. Every time I stepped out and made an amends without talking to a sponsor or a person who I trusted, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. In some cases, it was like almost a grave mistake. And for me, a grave mistake would be to drink. So those were the situations that in early recovery, I thought, okay, I need to do something different. Because I definitely cannot risk going back at that the same way again. Now, some amends are going to be made, they're going to be out of our hands, right? So for financial amends, some of those are out of your hands, right? You're going to have to pay people back. I was shocked when the bank came after me for their money. Shocked. Shocked they weren't going to wait. I was like, but wait, I'm getting sober. And the bank said, well, that's very nice. Where's our money? Right? Thankfully, they couldn't send anybody to my house. Actually, that might have worked out better for me. But I had to pay them back. I couldn't wait. So some things we can't wait on, right? But what we have to think about when we're looking at careful sense of timing and good judgment, I have to ask myself, am I being sneaky and just trying to wait and put it off, right? That's why they put in there courage. The ability to do something that you know is difficult or dangerous. Mental or moral strength to venture into danger, fear, or difficulty. We're going to need that. We're going to need courage. There's no question about it. I couldn't do it without courage. And I had no courage where those things were concerned without the first few steps to build up that courage and that connection with God for me. And that's just been my experience. And prudence. What is prudence? Shrewdness in the management of affairs, using reason to govern oneself. Being reasonable. Let's be reasonable. What were most of my amends anyway? When I was unreasonable. When I demanded far too much of something that was all too natural. But instead of asking and waiting, I demanded. And most of us demand, right? But if I show some prudence, I might actually get taken to a place where God shows me what the amend is to be. I'm not going into a crack house to have coffee, right? I'm not going to the bar to have coffee and make amends. These are dangerous places for me, dangerous places for us, right? I want to make sure that I'm using the best judgment I possibly can. And I remember when I was in my first 30, 60, 90 days, maybe even my first year, my headspace was, I could not describe it as prudent. I didn't have courage. I was scared all the time. And good judgment and careful sense of timing, I didn't know what that meant. My best judgment in my first year was to go to the doctor when I had a boo-boo. That was my best judgment. Or to go to a meeting every day. It was the best I could do, right? And so I don't know what that's like for you, but I can tell you that I'm yet to meet new people in this program that exhibit those 4 very important ideas when they go about making amends, or when they come to me and ask me if they should go make amends. I don't tell people what to do or what not to do. That's just not in my makeup. But I definitely try to describe to them what it is we're trying to get at by doing this. So I'm going to finish by telling you a story about an amends. And it was the lady who ran out today to give me a hug. And I had hurt her terribly in sobriety, right? She and I were connected prior to me sobering up. On again, off again, one of those usual romances in recovery and out of recovery. The constant joy, pain, suffering, love. Oh my goodness, we're so in love. It was almost like it was going to end like Romeo and Juliet, right? Even though there was nobody holding us from each other, it was just us. So in sobriety, I sobered up and time went by, and I didn't make amends right away because she didn't want to talk to me because I'd hurt her pretty bad. And then as time went on, I got put in a position where I could make amends. And so I thought, okay, obviously God's telling me I need to go and do this. I saw her a couple of times, like in the span of a month, when I hadn't seen her at all. So I thought, okay, God's telling me to go do this. I didn't talk to my sponsor though. And it wasn't like I just forgot to talk to my sponsor. I was like, I should probably call my sponsor. Oh no, he'll just tell me what I'm going to do is right. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, right? I had it figured out for him. So I went and did it. And it was the worst thing I could have done, right? And it wasn't just the worst thing I could have done because I did it. It was the worst thing I could have done because I wasn't ready. I hadn't weighed the pros and cons of making good judgment. I hadn't weighed the possible consequences, right? The possible consequences of me not only doing it improperly, but not just leaving it at that. Because I'm like a good fixer, right? And in the early recovery, I was an excellent fixer. Oh my goodness, I made a mess. I got to clean it up. Well, in the process of me cleaning it up, I just put her right back on my list. So she was right back on my amends list. Each of you can use your imagination to figure out how poorly it went. And if you can imagine it, it's probably what happened, right? It was awful. Anyway, so time went by, and then I thought, I prayed, I put her back on my list, I waited, I was like doing the waiting and being godly and all that. And then she came back into my life again, as these things happen. Which was one of the things I couldn't imagine in early recovery. I had no patience. I had no idea that the universe worked without my knowledge. No concept of it. I thought that if I was asleep, everything was asleep, right? That if I wasn't doing it, obviously it wasn't supposed to happen. But the truth is, God and the universe and everything in it works constantly, right? So in came this lady back into my life again. And it was a couple years after the terrible travesty of an amend. So she comes back in, and I think, I'm instantly nervous because I'm like, okay, I got to do it again. Okay, how am I going to word it? What am I going to say? What am I going to do? Okay, I'm thinking, I'm stressed. It's so much stress. And so I don't do anything. Thank you, Lord. I didn't do anything right away. But I'm stressed, and I'm wondering, why am I so stressed about this? Like, I know what I got to do. But every time I thought about it, itty-bitty lies came in my head to try to make it seem like I was better than I was. The brain was feeding me those little tiny bits of denial that I was as bad as I was in that situation, right? So what I did was I called somebody, and I asked somebody. And I told them everything I was thinking. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Thank you, God, for the ability to acknowledge that I don't know what I'm doing. Because as time goes on, that saved my life more than anything else I've ever learned. Right? So I was told, maybe what you're doing is you're thinking about it totally improperly. Instead of trying to make yourself look better for doing a terrible thing, why don't you just tell the truth? The light bulb went off, like that light shining on me right now. The light went off, and I thought, wow, I'm not nervous anymore. Dude, we're going to have to get him a helmet. Does he need a helmet? He's okay? I was like, what is that thud? And then it was the kid, poor guy. So all I had to do was tell the truth. And I didn't even see her after that for a few months again. I just kept going, but I felt better. I felt better because the truth was always going to set me free. It's always going to set us free. And lots of people talk about forgiveness. And I think about forgiveness like it's the result of action for me. It's not an action in itself. I always say, well, I try to say, oh, I forgive that person. But that's tough for me. Because when I'm saying I forgive you, I'm having a hard time forgiving you. Right? I'm having a hard time with whatever it was. The closest I've come to feeling that is in that moment when we were reconnected again after time went by. And after I'd acknowledged that what I needed to do was tell the truth. And when we did get connected, and I was able to face her with courage, prudence, okay, good judgment, better judgment. I'm not going to say perfect judgment because it's me we're talking about, so it's better judgment, right? What happened from that was a feeling of forgiveness. And it wasn't something that was fleeting. But it's also not something that I can really describe. But if you've done it, you could feel it. I'm sure you all know it. When you face who you were, right? And you know that it's just the way it is. Right? And you do it and you tell them. And you let them tell you what they need to tell you. It was the greatest experience of my life. One of the greatest experiences. I'm going to go meet my nephew later, so I'm going to reserve the right to say that might be the better experience. But it was incredible to feel forgiveness from another human being who has absolutely no reason to forgive you. This is the process of step 9. That's the result of making these direct amends. Now, of course, I always want to go slow. Some of my friends call me the sloth. I'm like the sloth version. I'm a human version of a sloth because I'm slow. And they're like, Dave, I want to do this step. And I'm like, whoa. Why, man? Let's go. Let's get the understanding of this. Let's do this slowly. What's the rush? Right? What's the rush? I don't want to make more amends than I have to. I don't know if anyone in here has ever made amends. But it's not like it's fun. I didn't have a good time walking in there and then sitting down and saying, this is what I did. And having them in some cases go, I had no idea. And then it's like, oh, but you have to do it. That's what they tell us. And the truth is, I want that stuff out of the way so that I can live a better life today. Right? We want that stuff gone so that we can stay sober and clean and get better. And so I appreciate the process and how difficult it is. And so a couple of things that I'll leave you with. Anyway, needless to say, I almost forgot the end of the story, right? So I felt the forgiveness. It was an incredible rebonding experience for us as actual people, because when I was using and drinking, it's not like I felt like I did not treat other people as though they were human, right? Or equal. And I certainly didn't appreciate women for all of their incredible qualities. I appreciated some of their incredible qualities, but not all of them. And so that's when things really started to shift for me.